here we are. It's Christmas, almost Christmas, 2 days away. And this will be the almost the last video of the year. We'll have one more next Friday. But I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you had a great year, and thank you all for letting me into your houses each week, and sometimes several times a week, to talk about the things that are of interest to us. But it's been fun, and we'll do more next year, of course. There's a lot going on in the auction market. Right now it's very quiet, but I think I've heard rumors of some pretty good things coming along, and we'll take a better look once they begin to appear, as they always do in the coming months. All right, so everybody have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you again soon, and enjoy your families this holiday. There's not a lot in the weekly newsletter this week because of the holidays and whatnot, and listings have tapered off sharply over on eBay. There's not a lot happening on Live Auctioneers because the same effect, as we've talked about many times, that the market just quiets down at Christmas. People have other things on their minds, as we all should. And so spend time here. We're going to be having a family over, and friends and whatnot. We'll be having several dinners. I saw a tenderloin in the kitchen this morning that looked awfully good. We'll be cooking that on Christmas Day. And then I think Christmas Eve we're having grilled scallops over pasta with Alfredo sauce. Does that sound rich? And I think there's some pastries that'll be cooking in the oven as well. All right, so there we are, and Merry Christmas to everybody. And now we get on to the regular weekly video and what's been going on, but I just wanted to throw this in just to say thank you to everybody, and thank you for joining us on Patreon. I hope you've enjoyed the extra videos and things that are going on over there, as well as the articles, and all of you have enjoyed using the Bidamount site during the course of the year. We try to keep it updated and keep the global member pages busy and one thing and another. So thank you all very much. And on to the regular video. All right. Bye-bye. I want to go over a couple of the highlights of the last few months, because we had a bunch of sales that finished up, and I didn't have really the time to go back and pull apart the auctions of the last month. There's a few great lots that sold at Christie's, a few great lots, of course, that went through at Sotheby's. We're going to talk about them. And before we get started, I just want to point out to the Patreon users, we posted a video this week or last week on a piece of American furniture in our house, which is the blanket chest, which you might find interesting, and another on a very interesting painting. If you like unusual paintings, and you've subscribed over there, check out this. This is a picture that I acquired a number of years ago, and it's got a very interesting story behind it, and really what it's depicting. And it isn't what it was sold as, which makes it more interesting. At any rate, I want to take a look now and talk about a couple of lots that went through Christie's in the last couple of months. Some of you will be aware of them, and you've seen them. And one of them is this. This was an unbelievably rare Chanchu Ping Yongchen period vase with an iron red dragon on it. And the dragon was so red, it almost looked, as it says in the description, it looked like raspberries or crushed strawberries. Brilliantly done. A dragon sort of executed in the reminiscent of the Ming style. During the Yongchen period, the Yongchen emperor had a lot of interest in earlier wares. He was a big fan of Ming ceramics, and he was always encouraging the workers at the Imperial atelier at the palace to try new things, to do new things. He'd give them a vision of what he wanted, and then they would try to do it, and then he'd come back. And he interacted. He was sort of like Qinlong in many regards. He would interact with the artisans to see what they were working on. Were they doing what he wanted? And he'd give them suggestions and ideas. And in this one, you have this sort of, they describe it in the description, which is I think pretty good. A sinuous sort of clouds with this emerging three-clawed dragon coming out of it, which is very reminiscent of Ming dragons with three claws, but it's decidedly a Qing dragon in the face. The nose is foreshortened a little bit. The whiskers are changed. The horns here are more like stag horns coming off the head and so forth. And they're a really stupendous vase. Marking period on the top here, not on the base. But an absolutely a fantastic vase. And there's only, I think, one or two others like it known. And if you look at it, you'll see that the dragon is sort of coming in and out of the clouds all the way around the vase. but the color red on this was so outstanding. And I believe that in Eskenazi, Giuseppe Eskenazi's great book, The Dealer's Hand, there's a similar sort of vase that he handled to this one. If it's not the same one, I'm not sure. But at any rate, this one went through at Christie's a month or so ago, and it did very well. It sold for 56 million Hong Kong dollars, which is right around 7 million US. But not a surprise. This fantastic decoration, really great thing. And then moseying along over to this, the Huanhua Li painted table, also known as a Hui Zhao. This was a great example, beautifully proportioned, wonderful, that classic simplicity that Ming furniture was known for. One friend of mine says it almost looks like Scandinavian modern in a way because of its simple design. But this was an extremely fine table and in beautiful condition, and it did quite well. It ended up selling for 6,930,000 Hong Kong, which is right around 800, roughly around 800,000 US dollars. It was estimated at just 1.5 to 2.5 million, so it went way beyond the estimate. And again, we talked about what estimates, how much you can rely on estimates when it comes to value. But this was something that went through the important Chinese ceramics and works of art sale a month or so ago at Christie's in Hong Kong. And an absolutely splendid piece of furniture. The proportions of it, the length, the height, everything was just scaled perfectly. And the wood quality, of course, was outstanding. And it appeared, I suspect it's 100% original. It's a great looking piece of furniture. And then over to this was that sale, the Tianmen sale that took place, Tianmen sale that took place on November 30th. This was a small sale. It was a boutique sale. Only had 15 lots in it, but the 15 lots were absolutely amazing. And we're going to look at a few of them. One of them is this. And these pieces were all bought back in the 1980s. This very rare Yuan dynasty peony scroll vase is one of the finest of its type known. Absolutely superb workmanship on this, especially when you consider that they hadn't been doing blue and white decoration very long. At this point, the blue and white underglazed decoration started in the Yuan dynasty, and the Yuan dynasty was only 130 or so years long. It was a very short period, and here they produced this. Absolutely superb, and it even had its original cover, which is quite astounding, and it appears to be in great condition, and it sold for $237,000 in the 1980s, 1986, 1987, to go into this collection. The collector here, the Chen Menlu collector, he went on a sort of a bender for Yuan dynasty ceramics at that time, and he bought a number of pieces. We're going to look at some of them. This one sold for $67,775,000, which is a little over 8 million US, and it measured just 17 inches in height. It sold at Sotheby's, here it is, December 10th, 1985. And it had a long history, long exhibition history, enormous background behind this. Research has been done on it. Let's see, what else does it say in here? Provenance, it just says sold at Sotheby's in 85, but a stupendous piece of porcelain, and obviously came from a private collection that hadn't been noted before because it's not mentioned in the description. If they knew it, they'd certainly bring it up. And then you have this, another Yuan dynasty piece, also in the Tianmen collection, is this really fine, extremely rare blue and white plantain tree decorated plate. And this is done in a sort of a reverse pattern with a blue background and on the rim, with the white areas forming the decoration, the areas that are not decorated in cobalt. This was a technique that they devised during the Yuan dynasty, and here you see where they filled in around what they wanted to highlight in white. And then in the middle, they did the opposite again. They went the other way and did all the decorations in underglazed blue with a white background. But up here, the white areas with all the fruit and so forth and the leaves and the flowers are highlighted by a blue background. It's a very clever effect. And then, of course, the very classic wave border. Absolutely beautiful piece of. I thought this was one of the most interesting. The decoration on this is one of the most interesting styles of decoration. If you have John Carswell's book on blue and white. If you don't have it, get it. It's a great book on blue and white. John Carswell was a Sotheby's guy for many, many years. He retired a number of years ago and he took to writing books, but he was a ceramics expert on Middle Eastern and Chinese ceramics. He's a brilliant guy. If any of you remember John, you'll know who I'm talking about. And he wrote a great book on blue and white. And in it, he explains in considerable detail this technique of decorating with the blue background and then highlighted in white in the foreground and so forth. And it explains the optical effect that causes and just how far ahead they were when they did this. It was almost mind-boggling when you consider this was done during between 1279 and 1368. A long time ago, and they were able to do it then. And this plate sold for 25,785,000 Hong Kong dollars, or around $3.5 million US dollars. But it was a spectacular piece of porcelain, and it was estimated at 20 to 30 million, and it landed right in the middle of it. It's 16 and a half inches in diameter. There's a very good lot essay on this at the bottom, explaining all about it. Absolutely stupendous piece of porcelain. And then moseying along over to this one, this is another example. This is in the Yongle period. And this is a style of plate. These grapes pattern plates were very popularly sent to the Middle East, to Turkey and Persia and so forth. And this was sort of the base model for some of the original pieces of Iznik ware that were produced in Turkey for the court. And the reason was that the ruler of Turkey was so enamored of this pattern, this beautiful material, that he ordered his own people to make it, but they couldn't make porcelain then. So what they did was they did it in pottery. And Iznik pottery with this grapes pattern, the first pieces looked virtually identical to this in many, many ways. And but this is what they based it on. And again, it's that influence of Mongol and early Ming trade into the Middle East, and these would have been sent as tribute gifts to leaders in foreign lands out of respect and so forth. And of course, these were always quite large in size. This particular plate measured again is 17 inches in diameter, and these were giant food bowls. These were meant to be used at giant feasts, with people sitting around and having them all full of different types of foods. And these were considered to be great treasures. And today in the book on the Topkapi Sari Museum and all that, you'll see examples of these in that collection to this day. Some of the best pieces in the world are in the Middle East. This one was sold. It was estimated at 8 to 10 million Hong Kong, which I thought was awfully low. I remember seeing that, thinking that's way under the money. They're saying it's worth somewhere between roughly a million and 1.2 million. Ended up selling for 3.5 million, almost 3 times the estimate, 2.5, 3 times the estimate. A great example again. And then the last one is this. This was actually sold to the collection by Jim Lally back in the day. And it's this amazingly great moon flask. It went through a Christie's or a Sotheby's auction. I forget which one it was. And he apparently bought it for inventory and then sold it. And this is it. A stupendously beautiful, another piece of great blue and white. Yongchen Marken period vase. Here's the bottom of it. And again, it's an opportunity to study the foot rims on these things. We always talk about foot rims. This is what the foot rim on a great Yongchen vase should look like. And it's got the Chen Minlu sticker on it, of course. And I don't see the Lally sticker on it, but I know it went through him. Maybe they took it off when they bought it, or it never had one. I don't know. But it had been exhibited a number of times, and this did very well. It measured 16 inches tall, which is quite good sized, and sold for 32,440,000 Hong Kong, or around 4 million US dollars. This sold just this past November, a couple of weeks ago, on the 30th in Hong Kong. An absolutely great piece of blue and white porcelain. And then the last piece we're going to show is this. These are believed to be one-of-a-kind vases. Qinlong Marken period, and these are very glittery. These were ordered, made by the Qinlong Emperor. They found the documents on them. These are documented. They have all kinds of history on them. They are extremely rare, extremely beautiful, and in perfect condition with all this spectacular gilding. These are about as glittery as you could get. Really, really amazing. And they provided lots of photographs of them. Here, there's the mark on the bottom. And they have a good write-up on this because they were able to do some research and find out a bit about it. And they were in the collection of J.M. Who recalls acquiring the pair. He noticed an old medical prescription handwritten in traditional calligraphy hidden inside one of the vases. They tried to enlist Chinese traditional doctors to decipher prescription, but they didn't have any luck doing it. There was some sort of writing that they found on it. And then there's a very extensive, sort of a nice footnote, I think, sort of on how it was acquired. And then down below here, there's a long write-up on them. Let's see here. A similar vase had sold in 2005 for 14 million Hong Kong, and then another somewhat similar vase sold for before that, as I recall. But these are the only ones of this type. That's the thing that's important about them. And these were, I believe, the vases that were sent to the palace. I want to go up here and check this so I don't make a mistake on this. But I believe these were sent to Cindy Louis Landscape Born. I believe these went to there was a palace, Shandong Palace, and I believe these were sent there by the emperor himself because he was so fond of them, and they were absolutely amazing, and they sold very well. They sold for 40 million Hong Kong dollars, or about 5 million US for the pair. And these were not enormous; they were just 11 inches tall, but in pristine condition. Absolutely beautiful, and off you go. Let's see here. The write-up on this, there was a lot of information about it in here. Undulating. Excuse me while I just read this quickly. I want to make sure I don't leave out anything. If they've added anything that I don't remember. Okay, they were illustrated. They were first in the collection in 1911, and then lots of ownership records from then on, and about the collector that had them and so forth. Absolutely fantastic. All right, and then moving along over to this. This was sold at Sotheby's a month or so ago. No, this was sold earlier this year. Excuse me. This is the very rare Yongchen puce decorated dragon vase, done during the possibly, they found the court records on this, possibly made in 1732 according to the Qing court records. So they apparently had some sort of history on the production of this particular vase that they dug up. But the decoration on it was just mind-boggling, beautiful. And it was decorated at the Imperial Atelier. Wonderfully done, Fallenthai workmanship all the way down, and possibly a unique piece in this color. I think they said there might be one or two others similar to it, but this is considered apparently to be the finest of the known examples. Extremely rare, and this did very, very well also. Of course, it sold for 60 million Hong Kong dollars, which is about 7 million US. And it measured just a foot tall, just exactly a foot tall. Very, very rare. And they have the date on when it was made, which makes it a lot more interesting. And again, this was one of these things that Yongchen was interested in. He would make suggestions. He would ask the decorators to do things they hadn't done before, and he wanted to challenge them. And this is the kind of stuff that they came up with during his time. And then there was this. This is the Chan and Bakshun Jibao seal, Qing dynasty, Qianlong period in spinach green. How big was this? This was small, right? It was like 4 or 5 inches by 4 or 5 inches, which makes it a pretty good sized chunk of jade. But the quality of the jade and the carving was stupendous. This has been through auction a couple of times. It's a well-known piece among the scholar collector crowd and all this, because of the quality is so absolutely outstanding all the way around, as you can see. And they have a good shot of the bottom. That's what the bottom of an imperial seal should look like. If somebody ever shows you a jade seal, and it doesn't have, and they say, oh, it's imperial, and it doesn't have this kind of extremely tight carving in it, you can just put it down and forget it. This is what it should look like. This is what the quality of an imperial seal was unbelievably fine. It was unbelievably fine. It was every bit as good as the carving itself on the upper part of the seal. And this was in a lot of demand for this. This sold for 48 million Hong Kong dollars, or around 6 million US dollars. And then popping along over to this. This was a really rare thing. This is a Western Han Dynasty solid gold. They call them feathermen. And this goes back to the Han Dynasty, and there was a lot of mysticism with the Taoists back then. And they believed that there were spirits and so forth that lived in the mountains and could communicate between the living and the dead, and that they could present immortality to people, and the people, these sort of feathered humans forms were believed, I guess, to be the presenters of immortality, and that's what this is depicting. And this is the only known example. And this thing is very, very small. It's only 4 inches tall. It's absolutely fascinating. It's a little gruesome looking. It's a little creepy looking, I have to admit, but in the face, because it's sort of a skeletonized face, all done in gold. And he's presenting a life, immortality on a tray. And this was a lot of interest in this, obviously. And it was very small, like I said, 4 inches tall, and it sold for 25 million Hong Kong dollars, or around about a little under 3.5 million US dollars. And then the last piece we're going to talk about, of course, is this. This was one of the big highlights of the year in the ceramic world. Sold for 198 million Hong Kong dollars. Now, there were a few lots that sold at the Poly Group inside China, I think this year, that maybe brought almost this much money, but it's not all that easy to find out what the real story is at Poly because of the issues they have. Let's just leave it there, because they sell a lot of fakes. They sell a lot of real stuff. It's a real circus. But this is a very, very rare bowl, and it was believed to have been produced during the Yongchen period, but decorated for the Qianlong Emperor. And there's a very long write-up on it. There's a huge collection history for this bowl. It's one of the most amazing collection histories you'll ever see. At first, it belonged to the collection of Captain Charles Oswald Liddell of Shanghai. And he assembled this in the late 19th century when he was living in China. Very possibly this came from the Summer Palace. And then it was sold through Blewitts and Sons for 150 pounds at the time. All right, in 1929. And then it went into the collection of Charles Russell until 1960. Then it was in the collection of Barbara Hutton, who had an amazing collection. She died in 1979, and then it was acquired no later than 1956 and sold in 1971 at Sotheby's for 7,000 pounds. Which is still seems remarkably inexpensive. 1971, sold to J.T. Tai, and he purchased it at the above sale for $7 million. And then it was back at Sotheby's in 1985, sold for 1 million Hong Kong. Prices are starting to get up there now. Now you're up around 120,000 for it. And that's a big jump from 1971 to 1985. In 14 years, it went up basically 15-fold in value. And then it sold to S.E. Ko, who had it in the Chen Min Lu collection, acquired from Robert Chang from the sale above. And it goes on and on and on and on. All right, and then it sold last in 2006 for 151,000 Hong Kong, and this time around it sold for 198,000 Hong Kong. And it's an interesting bowl because a lot of documentation on it. It's of course spectacularly well decorated. I don't know why they always make the best pieces so small sometimes, but they do. But this is a close up of it. The decoration on it is absolutely superb. It's got the Imperial Atelier overglazed blue enamel mark on the bottom. But apparently, according to the records, the blank itself, the actual bowl was produced in Qianlong's father's reign during the Yongchen Emperor's time, and then was decorated and finished later. Which makes it a bowl of great interest, and this will give you an idea how small it is. A very small bowl, but spectacular quality, with a calligraphy on the back and these beautifully decorated birds, and ended up selling for 198,220,000 Hong Kong, which is roughly around just about 25 million US dollars. for this bowl. So it makes it one of the most expensive pieces of porcelain ever sold, certainly in the top 5, I would think at this point, top 5 or 6. And it was in April of this past year. But those are just sort of a quick few amazing things to look at from the past year that we've seen. And I'm no doubt there'll be things coming up this year. All right, now over to what's been going on in the real world where the rest of us live, okay? All right, last week on eBay, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot going on. Take a look at some results. Oh, no, wait a minute. These are things that are these things that are coming up? Hold on a second. There we are. No, these are the results. Here we go. Those are some pieces. There won't be there will be some things on the newsletter page this week, but not a lot. I think there's maybe 30 or 40 things because there's so little on there right now. There's so little being listed. But a couple of things, as we talked about last week, December is a great time to pick up some good buys. We've talked about this a lot, and this is an illustrative point. This is a vase that we put in the newsletter last week, and it was advertised on eBay as a 19th century or earlier vase. Yeah, it is earlier. This was Pud that sold this, and only went for $115. And this was a very, very nice vase, probably 18th century or earlier. It stands 6 inches tall, nice patina on it, has the original attached built-in base. Beautiful little bronze, really lovely, simple, elegant form. And I was stunned. There's a good shot of it with the color. That's the color of it. Nice natural patina all over it. Doesn't look like it's been cleaned or messed with or polished in any way. Completely original. I hope one of you bought it. It went for nothing. It went for $114, which is peanuts. It should have brought $500 to $700. All right, and then this was also a very good buy. We've seen these pots before. I caught my eye because it had a horse on it, and I like these. These are these late Qing crackleware pieces with underglazed blue decoration. Rather charming horse on it. It looked like it was in good condition, and it sold for just $81. And in the past, we've seen these, and they typically sell for $250 to $300. So again, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the time of the year. People sometimes don't think it does. I absolutely think it does because people are not looking as much as they did before. And then there was this very nice silk brocade. They called it a temple banner. I think it's just a strip, but with dragons on it, beautifully done. And this went for $1,000. But I think it was better than that. There's a lot of silk here. This is a pile of silk. And I think this, in the end, will be viewed by the buyer as a pretty good bargain. There was a bit of damage to one section of it here. You can cut that out. It's no problem, or set it aside. But this is a big piece of silk, big banner, with these beautiful 5-clawed dragons on it. Classically done, nicely done. Went for just $1,000, and that's an unusually low price for that. All right, and then over to this, the jade. They dated as 17th century, Ming 17th century. 17th century, I think, is probably okay with this. It was a nice looking piece of jade on an old stand. It's got this the sort of, the gift box you get if you buy this in Hong Kong from a dealer there. They put them in these blue boxes. They don't always mean it's brand new, incidentally, but this looked like a pretty good bowl. Looked like it was well finished, and ended up selling for $3,150. Thought that was pretty nice. And then over to this. These were the photographs. I think a number of you noticed them. I got some emails from you wondering about these photographs. I've talked about it before. Early Chinese photographs are a real area of collecting and increasing popularity. This is a general photo album that was done in the 1920s. It has 183 photographs of travel in the Yangtze River area and the China massacre at Yichang. And it's a historic thing. A lot of these photographs didn't survive. And even though there was an active photographic community, especially in Hong Kong, they had a photo club there, a photographer club early on in the early 20th century in Hong Kong that was quite active. And they had some very good photographers who did work on silver bromide paper, and they did all this. But there were also books like this. These were taken, albums like these were produced, often by tourists that were over there or Europeans that were going, and they took these fascinating pictures, and you have 180 of them. And the album sold for $1,525. It just shows you how much. It wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago or so, an album like this would sell for $100 pretty easy, and that would be about it. There might be a little interest in it, but nowhere near the interest there is today. All right, and then there was this photograph. This was a photograph of Chinese gamblers in Shanghai wearing robes. And here they are. And that single photograph sold for $156. They date it to roughly 1871. And this was a CDV, a card photograph. Very interesting. And it was in calligraphy at the bottom, gamblers in old Shanghai. And then there was this. This sold okay. But this was an extremely fine late 18th century China trade export teapot with the chicken skin ground, as they refer to it. This is the little tiny dots that you see on the glaze here. That you see it on these, you see it on the vases, and you usually only see it on the better pieces. But the decoration on this was excellent. The cobalt decoration on this was excellent, and I don't think this was a strong price. I don't think this was a very reasonable price for a really fine, the upper echelon of Chinese export blue and white wares from the period. The fact that it sold for under $500 tells you that this was because that's what they usually sell, $500 to $600 in this quality if they're in good condition. This one looked to be in very good condition all the way around, as far as I could tell. There's the bottom of it, no cracks, no damage to the inside. The handles haven't been reattached, nothing like that. And it went for $373. I think that was a pretty good buy. And the shipping was nothing. It was $19 coming over from the UK, Manchester, UK to here. And that was sold by a seller named Moonlight. And then this I threw on there. It hasn't sold yet. And somebody asked me why did I put this on there. And this is not Chinese. This is a Swedish tin glazed faience that was made during the 18th century. And I included this on the newsletter page for the fun of it, just to show you how early, even in Sweden, they were copying Chinese export wares. And if you collect 18th century Chinese export wares of this type from China during this period, this is sort of would be an interesting thing to own with it. Many years ago, at one point, I was in a house in the North Shore here in the Beverly Farms area, and a lady was a Dutch lady. It was a family of Dutch descent. She was originally from New York, and in her living room, she had two bent glass cabinets. And on the right side, it was full of Kangxi porcelains. There were probably 40 or 50 Kangxi porcelains in there, ewers and cups and all kinds of forms and shapes. And on the other side, she had the Delft versions of exactly what was on the right side. So when you were looking at the two cabinets from a distance, it looked like they were just mirrored exact copies of one another. And you don't realize that this one is Chinese and that one was Dutch. And it was a very interesting collection. I don't know what happened to it. At the time, this was over 20 years ago, I said, if you ever decide to sell this collection, call us, because it would have institutional interest. It was just a great looking thing. And this was the kind of stuff that she had, only it wasn't, this is Swedish, that was Dutch, but it was also Kangxi period. And here you have the Swedes were doing it. This was done by Rörstrand, antique Swedish tin glazed faience pottery serving dish, 18th century. And again, the price on this, look at this, $949. It hasn't sold. I think that's a little heavy, but this is Phoenix Child has a price on it, but I think it's a pretty great looking thing. All right, and but it's a fixed pricing. It's not an auction item. And then the last thing that sold was this, and this is something you don't see very often. This is a mirrored pair of these seated Buddhas. And I hope one of you bought these. This is a pretty rare sight. Mirrored pairs of these Buddhas. We see the single Buddhas from the early Republic period all the time. They turn up and they always bring $1,500 to or $1,200 to $1,600 somewhere along there. This closed just a couple of days ago, and here you have a mirrored pair, which you don't see very often. And they were stamped on the bottom by the maker, and they sold for $3,248. And I think this was a great thing to buy because remember that you saw these are a mirrored exact pair with the hands on the outside and so forth. They exactly mirror each other. They're not duplicates of the same thing. And see how long you wait to see another pair of these. And I'm gonna keep track of it because I don't think you're going to see them again for a long time. So again, sort of a rare thing from the Republic period. All right, and that pretty well sums it up for the week. I'm not going to go on too much today. Sometimes I go a little long. We did several videos this week, as you know. As I said before, because the Bidamount Live site, we had to shut that down. We have more time, so we'll be doing more videos. And if you enjoy what we do, join us over on Patreon or subscribe on the global member pages. They will be getting filled up with things as the new year comes along. I think I noticed Sprunks has a sale that we posted to the global pages this week, and you can get to it also through the Patreon page. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. So hang on for a couple more weeks. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of stuff start to emerge back onto the market as we head into the new year. The stock market, as everybody knows, the American stock market anyway is at at record highs. The S&P 500 is at a record high. So I think there'll be some money floating around in the U.S. economy to buy art, and I think it'll bode well for the art and auction market in general. And we're going to be doing some more videos also this coming year on other things. We're going to talk about rugs and carpets and paintings and fine furniture and so forth, and furniture that would go with Chinese art and that sort of thing. We're going to broaden it out a bit. We made that decision. We started this week with a video talking about the Americana sale and about collecting American furniture and European furniture, and that sort of thing is a practical matter, but also is a one to create a beautiful home to live in. Because it's where you live. You want to have something nice, and we're gonna get into that a bit. All right, have a wonderful Christmas. We'll see you next week, and give us a thumbs up if you enjoy the videos. Leave a comment, and Merry Christmas to everybody. All right, Merry Christmas to all. All right, bye bye.